Hello, I am Alon Burstein, visiting assistant professor in the Department of Political Science and an Israel Institute fellow at the University of California, Irvine, here bringing you the summary of the last 24 hours of the Israel-Hamas war. So it is currently the eve of November 8th, 2023 in the United States, the morning of November 9th, 2023 in the Middle East. Starting with the hostage situation, the kidnapped Israelis that are held in the Gaza Strip. The IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, are now confirming that there are 239 kidnapped Israelis held by the Hamas movement and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. That number is again one less than the IDF had confirmed 3 days ago. Today, as opposed to previous days, the IDF confirmed that the number has decreased because they have since discovered that one of the people they thought were kidnapped has been confirmed dead. In addition, there were many reports about potential release of hostages in exchange for humanitarian respite in the fighting of the Gaza Strip, among a substantial amount of different news outlets today. AFP reported from sources that are involved in negotiations that a respite of 1 or 2 days may be on the table in exchange for the release of 10 to 15 hostages. The BBC in turn reported that a respite of 3 days was being negotiated in exchange for the release of 12 hostages, 6 of them specifically with U.S. citizenship. That report also stated that Israel is demanding the release of at least 50 hostages, specifically children, women, and elderly. However, the BBC also reported that Israel did not reject the idea that as part of this respite and hostage release, Israel would also release Palestinian women and children who are held in Israeli jails. In turn, the Egyptian Al-Qahara Al-Akhbariya newspaper reported that a humanitarian respite in exchange for hostages is very near, and Al-Arabi Al-Jadid in Qatar reported that ongoing negotiations to release all women and children that are held in the Gaza Strip in exchange for all women and children in Israeli prisons is currently underway. All these rumors were echoed also by the White House spokesperson John Kirby and the IDF spokesperson, both of whom stated that while ceasefires are absolutely not on the table, humanitarian respites are possible. The New York Times also reported today that while a deal may be underway, the communications difficulties between Hamas in the Gaza Strip and Hamas abroad may be slowing these down. Abu Obaida, who is the spokesperson of the Al-Qassam brigades, Hamas's military wing, stated today that hostages will only be released in the prisoner exchange. And after all this, CNN reported that despite all this optimism, there are also officials that are saying a deal is still far away from being achieved. Moving on to the ongoing fighting going on in the Gaza Strip. There were rockets and missiles today fired from the Gaza Strip into primarily the southern parts of Israel, and substantially less than previous days that were fired also into the center. Barrages hit the different southern towns of Israel surrounding the Gaza Strip and primarily targeted the kibbutz of Kisufim. In terms of the IDF activity, there were reports of an IDF attack in Jabalia refugee camp near a medical facility, and reports are being circulated about other attacks that occurred against a mosque and a school, both in Khan Yunis. However, these are at this point very unconfirmed. The IDF published today that it destroyed an attack tunnel that it found in an UNRWA school. So UNRWA is the UN Work and Relief Agency that deals specifically with Palestinians. The IDF, every time it is uncovering a tunnel or some sort of attack facility or rockets that are held in schools or in kindergartens or in playgrounds or in anything that violates international rules of war, is trying to publicize this in order to show that Hamas has positioned its warfare specifically near these sites. So it exposed today that an attack tunnel was found specifically in an UNRWA school. In addition, the IDF published recordings that it had uncovered showing Hamas operatives discussing amongst each other the use of ambulances in order to transport weapons and different materials. And this comes, I remind everyone, less than a week after the IDF publicly stated that it had attacked an ambulance because it was being used by Hamas. In the different IDF retaliations throughout the Gaza Strip, Mahsan Abu Zaina, who is the head of the weapons development of Hamas, was assassinated. In addition, the IDF reported today that it is continuing to map out the different tunnels underneath the Gaza Strip and that it may take months to destroy them all. In terms of casualties, 2 IDF soldiers were confirmed killed today, so that brings us to a total of 34 IDF soldiers that have been killed since the invasion began. The Palestinian Health Ministry in the Gaza Strip is reporting 10,569 Palestinians that have been killed since the war began. Of these, upwards of 4,300 are minors. Moving on to the humanitarian situation. IDF spokesperson today stated that some 50,000 Palestinians evacuated the north of the Gaza Strip today. So this is in addition to the upwards of 1 million Palestinians that have already moved from the north of the Gaza Strip moving south. The IDF is reporting that 50,000 continue to evacuate today, that the IDF will maintain its open corridor for Palestinians to evacuate from the north to the south tomorrow, adding that the corridor's allocated times when Palestinians can move through it safely is going to be expanded by an extra hour. In addition, Italy announced today, after negotiations that were held with Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel that it is going to send a floating hospital to the shores of the Gaza Strip and is negotiating the establishment of a field hospital in the Gaza Strip. I remind everyone that the United Arab Emirates have already announced that they are going to establish a field hospital in the southeastern part of the Gaza Strip, and this is coordinated with Israel. Now Italy may be doing the same thing in the coming days. The World Health Organization today reported that a second shipment of medical supplies arrived in the Shifa Hospital. So the Shifa Hospital is in the north of the Gaza Strip, in the area that is completely besieged by Israel in Gaza City. But a second shipment of medical supplies has been able to get there. There are unconfirmed reports that 81 trucks carrying food, water, and medical supplies passed through the Rafah crossing today. However, it was also reported that the Rafah crossing has been closed due to a security incident. Right now, the reports of 81 trucks is rumored but unconfirmed. Moving on to the West Bank, there was an attack carried out by Palestinians against Israelis near the settlement of Itamar. A man and woman were injured in gunfire into their car. A 5-month-old baby that was in the car was uninjured. In addition, there are reports that Palestinians were killed in Dura village near Hebron, and that there was a substantial IDF activity in Jenin in which several Palestinians were badly injured as well. Prime Minister Netanyahu today met with the local council leaders of Israeli settlements. In the meeting, he stated that Israel is working to curtail Palestinian terrorism in the West Bank. It is working to stop the West Bank from becoming a second front, and it is working to, I'm quoting, stop a fringe minuscule that does not represent the people that are present here, i.e. the settlers, from carrying out violent attacks against Palestinians. So I've reported in recent weeks that there's mounting pressure in the international community and in Israel's political establishment about the terrorism that Israeli settlers are leveling against Palestinians. In Netanyahu's meeting with the settlers, he specifically said this is a fringe minuscule that does not represent the settlers. And he also added that in his conversations with President Biden, he rejected allegations that the terrorism is actually being perpetrated by settlers. The Secretary General of the PLO, Hussein al-Sheikh, today stated that the Palestinian Authority is going to refuse to accept the transfer of funds from Israel because Israel has deducted the funds that are destined for the Gaza Strip. So this is part of the ongoing back and forth between Israel and the Palestinian Authority. Is Israel going to transfer the funds that it owes the Palestinian Authority or not? I reported a few days ago about the ongoing debates within Israel. The Palestinian Authority is saying that it is not going to accept the funds. My prediction is that it will accept the funds with some caveats in the coming days. In addition, throughout the West Bank today, 37 Palestinians were arrested. There was specific activity of the IDF and confrontations between IDF and Palestinians noted in several different areas, specifically Kalkilia, near the Bir Zeit University, in Kfar Aqaba, Isa, and in Bethlehem. Moving on to the north of Israel, southern parts of Lebanon. There were continuous rocket barrages from Lebanon into the Upper Galilee and different areas throughout northern Israel. There was also anti-tank missiles fired into IDF outposts. The IDF attacked Hezbollah targets throughout Lebanon in retaliations, and the IDF specifically cited that it had targeted technological abilities of the organization. 2 IDF soldiers were reported to have been injured in different gun battles in the IDF outposts. In addition, there were reports today by the Syrian Human Rights Commission that Israel attacked 2 different sites in Syria overnight. One was near Damascus and belonged to Hezbollah, and the other was in the Asawida area in southeast Syria. There are reports that at least 3, I'm quoting, pro-Iranians were killed. This presumably refers to Hezbollah operatives. However, it is unclear. And in a rare move, Syria confirmed these attacks and stated that they did in fact take place. Syria usually denies that Israel violates its airspace because it wants to show that it can protect its airspace when necessary. In addition, there were reports today referencing Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah. In his speech on Friday, he specifically threatened the U.S. warships in the area. Today, there were reports that he was referring to Russian Yanhot missiles. These are specifically anti-ship missiles that the organization may have gotten from Syria as a result of the Syrian civil war. Moving on to some of the regional developments, the Pentagon today reported that the U.S. attacked an Iranian Revolutionary Guards facility in Deir ez-Zor in Syria. There are reports that this is the second attack that the U.S. has carried out in this area in recent weeks, and that 9 people were killed. In addition, a U.S. advanced drone was downed on the shores of Yemen. The Houthi rebels claimed responsibility for this, and the Pentagon later confirmed that one of its advanced drones was in fact downed. And in addition, mounting onto all the warships that have already been sent, and the nuclear submarine that was already sent, and 2,000 Marines that were already sent, and anti-missile and anti-aircraft batteries that were sent, the U.S. today reported that its B-1 strategic bomber carried out several flights throughout the area in a display of force, again mounting more and more pressure on Iran and Hezbollah, saying do not enter the fray. The United States is involved as well. Moving on to some of the political and general trends, the New York Times today reported in an interview with Khalil al-Khaya, who is the deputy of Yahya Sinwar, who is the leader of Hamas in the Gaza Strip. So the leadership of Hamas is divided between the leadership in the Gaza Strip and the leadership abroad. In the Gaza Strip, it is led by Yahya Sinwar, and his deputy, Khalil Ahaya, gave an interview to the New York Times. In the interview, Ahaya stated that the aim of Hamas in the October 7th attack was to restore the Palestinian issue to the forefront. He explicitly stated that the war is not about workers or aid or water, but rather about restoring Palestinian issue to the front lines. In addition, he confirmed reports that Hamas Gaza did not update Hamas abroad, so again the difference between the leadership, about the exact plans, and the New York Times speculated that Hamas abroad was surprised by the ferociousness of the attack itself. In addition, the New York Times also stated that it was reconfirmed that Hamas was surprised by the extent of its success. It had not anticipated to actually manage to kidnap or kill so many people. In addition, it was reported today that Hezbollah operatives were planning to attack synagogues, kosher restaurants, and Jewish community centers in Brazil in a complex operation between the Israeli Mossad, that's the equivalent of the United States CIA, and local authority in Brazil. Several people were arrested in connection with Hezbollah activity in the country. Other political developments that occurred in Israel was reported that public defenders are refusing to represent Hamas attackers from October 7th, so Israel has arrested several hundred, some reports say even upwards of 1,000, of Hamas attackers that entered on October 7th. Public defenders in Israel are saying they're refusing to represent them. The United Kingdom's foreign minister today flew from the G7 meeting in Tokyo directly to Saudi Arabia for a meeting with Middle East foreign ministers regarding the war. In addition, the U.S. Congress today, in a rare move, passed a motion officially condemning Rashida Tlaib's post where she cited that from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, is in fact a call for coexistence and peace. The White House also condemned her post. The UN Secretary General today stated that while he condemns Hamas's use of civilians as human shields, he added, and I quote, "When you see the number of civilians killed by the IDF actions, it's clear something is wrong." In addition, 51 different international women's rights organizations appealed to the United Nations today, demanding that the UN intervene in the hostage situation. A substantially large amount of the hostages that were taken on October 7th are women and children, so 51 international women's rights organizations are appealing to the UN, saying you have to be more involved. Moving on to some of the speculation regarding the future of the Gaza Strip, a spokesperson for the Israeli Prime Minister today stated, in response to what the U.S. had stated several days ago, that Gaza should be handed back to the Palestinian Authority. He added, and I quote, "It is a complex problem. They have not even condemned the attack," stating that the Palestinian Authority has not condemned the attack on October 7th. The Palestinian Authority's response to October 7th, I will add, has been complex. At first, they did not condemn the attack, and in the first hours of the attack, they in fact cited Hamas's right to defend the Palestinian people. After it was apparent the extent of devastation in the attack, the Palestinian Authority put out the general condemnation, condemning the killing of civilians on all sides and calling on the release of all hostages and prisoners on both sides. The Israeli Education Minister today, Yoav Kish, stated, and again I'm quoting, "It is of course possible that settlements will be restored to the Gaza Strip." And this comes amidst reports that other Likud members are working on an amendment to the law that in order to cancel the prohibition of Israelis from living in the Gaza Strip. So Israel evacuated its settlements from the Gaza Strip in 2005. A law was passed saying Israelis cannot reside in the Gaza Strip. So others are trying to amend that law, and this comes amidst all the talk about whether Israel is going to reoccupy the Gaza Strip, what is going to be the future of the Gaza Strip. Now the Minister of Education in Israel has stated that. Following the G7 meeting in Tokyo, Secretary of State of the United States Anthony Blinken stated that while Israel will not control the Gaza Strip long term, there may in fact be an interim period. He added, and I quote, "Gaza cannot stay under Hamas rule. That will lead us back to October 7th. It is also clear that Israel cannot occupy Gaza." These statements were later echoed by UK Foreign Minister, who also stated that it is clear that in the immediate Israel will have to have security responsibility, but that this should end as soon as possible. Finally, the Wall Street Journal today reported that Egyptian President Assisi rejected a proposal that was given to him from the head of the CIA when he was touring the region, that Egypt will take control of the Gaza Strip after Israel deposes Hamas until the Palestinian Authority can be restored. So again, what this mostly tells us is that there's a hot debate going on, primarily between different political leaders in the world. A lot of them are trying to pressure Israel to come up with a plan, but in Israel, there's still forces pulling in either direction. That is my report for the last 24 hours. I'll be back tomorrow.